Connecticut, as many as 110,000 school-age children suffer from a diagnosable mental health or substance abuse disorder. In the 2011-2012 school year, 1,668 Connecticut children experienced school-based court referrals. Michael Valerio is the Dean of Students at the Sarah J. Rawson Elementary School, which serves students through the 8th grade.
You have 13 students being arrested in the building for various reasons, and yet you kind of balance it out with 13 or 14 referrals for communal supports and services. It seems balanced, but it's grossly striking an imbalance.
So much of what the children are experiencing and how they're behaving in school is impacted by the trauma that they've lived. We have to treat the trauma. We have to be able to identify how these kids have been traumatized and get them the right type of treatment.
It's about 65 to 70% of kids who are in the juvenile justice detention or juvenile justice settings meet criteria for a mental health disorder.
Students with mental health needs are among those at highest risk for exclusionary discipline, including arrests, expulsions, and out-of-school suspensions.
Students are engaged in behaviors that are seen as arrestable offenses, and we seem to only be providing services once they get arrested.
Many school-based court referrals are for behaviors that can be better handled through routine discipline and other interventions, and not through the court system.
When you think about students, they must be connected to learning in order to be successful. And anything that disrupts that connection negatively impacts their outcome. So it is really important that if they have behavioral challenges, that they're connected to necessary supports.
Diverting these youth from juvenile justice involvement whenever possible can result in better outcomes and cost savings for the state.
It's very important for us to acknowledge that there are certain ways to deal with student behaviors that are not always and can't always be punitive in nature. We look to identify the problems that students have that might lead to behaviors that are problematic, and we look to train our teachers in ways to deal with those problems in the classroom setting that will lead to students having more time in class and less time being removed from class.
Removal of a child, whether it's for abuse or neglect or because they've committed an offense serious enough to warrant their removal from society, is never a good thing.
In fact, young people who become involved in the juvenile justice system are more likely to experience repeat arrests over time and are less likely to graduate from high school.
And so really thinking about that overlap between mental health and juvenile justice really is a good way to intervene in the school to prison pipeline. And it's really one of the foundations that SBDI was founded on.
The School-Based Diversion Initiative, SBDI, is finding ways to bring balance back to our schools and communities. SBDI is funded by a unique partnership among 4 state agencies: the Judicial Branch's Court Support Services Division, the Department of Children and Families, the State Department of Education, and the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services.
We offer teachers training opportunities in recognizing mental health symptoms. We offer schools the opportunity to take a look at their disciplinary practices and policies and think about ways that they can better address mental health needs and rely not so much on arrests or expulsions when there are other alternatives that meet students' needs.
The SBDI model is implemented in a school for 1 year, with additional ongoing support after the first year. Through training sessions, consultation, the SBDI toolkit, and support, school staff will strive to reach 3 primary goals: reduce the frequency of expulsions, out-of-school suspensions, and discretionary school-based arrests; link youth who are at risk of arrest to appropriate school and community-based services and supports; and build knowledge and skills among teachers, school staff, and school resource officers to recognize and manage behavioral health crises in the school and access needed community services. The Sarah J. Rawson Elementary School is in its 3rd year using the SBDI strategy.
We fully embrace the opportunity to kind of develop a new culture around dealing with problem behaviors. We took it from beyond just responding to crises and started to be more proactive and try to prevent these crises from ever taking shape. Nearly every behavioral health incident or issue could be attributed to or was a simple manifestation of a student's suffering or discomfort in some capacity. We looked at how do we alleviate that discomfort, how do we eliminate that suffering, and that's what helped us connect families to those communal supports throughout the neighborhood and eliminate many of the discretionary arrests and discretionary suspensions around behavioral health incidents.
Meriden's Platt High School has just implemented the SBDI strategy.
That partnership that the SROs have with the administrators and that bond that the SROs have with the students, that helps out tremendously. It helps out the school body, it helps out the citizens. I mean, it's a great partnership, and that's what we're looking to expound on.
The classroom teacher also needs to develop that type of relationship with the student. It comes in a lot of ways. It comes from not just instruction, but it comes from developing a relationship within the classroom, reaching out to students on the football fields, on the basketball court, with the club. It comes to really getting involved in their lives and just even sometimes having that simple conversation every day, noticing if they come to school and they look like they may have had a hard night or they may identify that they're hungry. Some of those behaviors and some of those feelings do lead to students acting out in class, and it's important that teachers can identify them.
We really have used that year that we work with the schools to build their capacity to sustain the initiative on their own. So they've made the connections, they've developed the resources, they've developed some additional skills, and they know how to track their own data to see how their outcomes are progressing over time.
The data shows that the schools participating in SBDI reduce court referrals by about 45% on average, with some schools reducing arrests by as much as 95% in the first year. And referrals to EMPS, the state's mobile crisis service, increased by 94% among participating schools. EMPS is a behavioral health service that stabilizes behavior problems that may result in arrest and addresses the mental health needs of students to prevent future involvement.
We have found that if we sit down at the table with the superintendents, with the principals, we explain it and we show that there has been success, many schools are receptive and grateful that they're getting this kind of help.
You're keeping students in the classroom, and by keeping them in the classroom, by keeping them engaged in the academic environment, by keeping them in their homes and in their schools and in their communities, you're actually giving them the opportunity to succeed academically as well.
So SBDI is a new way. It's a simple way of saying, I'm just going to shift my perspective. Stop seeing problem kids, start seeing problem behaviors, and attack the problem behavior. Because that makes my school better. It makes my student better, it makes my community better.
Now these kids are starting to understand that we're their friends. We're not here to just arrest people, and we're not there to just when they do something bad. If they do something bad, by all means, we are going to help them and try to resolve situations prior to making an arrest. If we can do whatever we can, especially in the school system, to not make an arrest, I think it's a win-win for everyone.
The whole idea of it takes a village to raise a child is true. I think that makes our school stronger, that we realize that we have community agencies that are very invested in our school and in our community and in our youth, because we certainly couldn't do it alone.
It is a win-win for all of us when we have a generation of young people who can go through our educational system despite their challenges and can come out on the other side successful, productive citizens. That really is what we want.